Well, election day is always the time where we just sit around waiting to find out what exactly is going to happen. And all we can do is sort of speculate as to how this thing is going to come out. There are a couple of different pollsters and analysts who have different analyses of how they think this thing is going to come down. The general widespread perception is that Republicans will likely take both the House and the Senate. The question is going to be the margins. Will Republicans take the House with 30 seats or 25 seats? Will Republicans take the Senate by gaining 1 seat or picking up 4 seats? These are the big questions. Henry Olsen over at the Washington Post is suggesting that he believes that the Republicans are going to end up taking 54 seats in the Senate and 246 seats in the House. 246 seats in the House would be like historic levels of Republican majority. 54 seats in the Senate would give them not only a solid majority, but the possibility of taking a supermajority in 2024. Remember that when it comes to the Senate, because only 1/3 of the Senate is up for election every 2 years, this means that this particular election cycle actually has a bunch of races that do not favor Republicans. There are Republican incumbents who are supposed to be vulnerable in places like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. In Pennsylvania, it wasn't even an incumbent. The incumbent is out, Pat Toomey, and that's why that was an open race. Next time around, there are a lot of vulnerable purple to blue Democratic seats. And so if Republicans end up with 54, there is the possibility that in a 2024 wave election for a Republican for president, if Joe Biden is running again, for example, then this would mean that Republicans have the possibility of having a historically large majority in the Senate. So when it comes to Senate elections, it's not just about this election, it's also about the next election. The same thing is true in the House. If Republicans have a very large majority in the House, then even if they don't do amazing in 2024, they can still maintain their majority in the House. So every election is about a little bit more than just that election. Henry Olsen says that this election is essentially a referendum on President Biden. He says, my predictions are more optimistic for Republicans than most of the other prognosticators. The Cook Political Report, for example, predicts the GOP will win between 12 and 25 House seats. 538's model forecasts the Senate as a dead heat. Those estimates and other underestimate the effects of a political truism. Midterms are always a referendum on the president. Biden is a historically unpopular president. Compared with every other president since World War II, Biden's job approval rating at this point in his tenure is slightly ahead of the approval of only 2 presidents, Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. Since Republicans lost 26 House seats in Reagan's first midterm and 40 in Trump's, that does not bode particularly well for Democrats. He says another reliable predictor is the generic congressional ballot, which measures which party voters plan to support for House seats without mentioning specific candidates. One prominent political science model shows that losing the generic House ballot by 6 points results in, on average, a loss of 26 seats. These 2 indicators show Democrats are in a deep hole because Real Clear Politics' poll average puts Biden's job approval at 42.3%. Even if we round that up to 43% and assume Democrats will exceed that number by 2 points, as presidential parties did in both 2006 and 2014, Democrats would take only 45% of the national House vote, which would be an awful outcome. He says there are 56 House seats seriously in play. How many seats are vulnerable to flip? 14 are Democratic-held seats that Trump won. Republicans hold 12 seats that Biden won. Democrats hold an additional 24 seats that Biden won by 10 points or less, yielding 50 seats below the line. The parties are seriously contesting an additional 6 seats that Biden won by 10 or more. So that means that if you're just looking at Biden plus 10 districts and everything less than that for Democrats, that's 50 seats. Midterm history suggests Republicans will win the overwhelming share of these districts. During the 2010 GOP wave and the 2018 Democratic tsunami, the party not in control of the White House captured between 70 and 80% of similarly vulnerable seats. So Henry Olsen is very bullish on the Republican chances. Meanwhile, Larry Sabato over at the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia suggests that the Republicans are going to net 1 seat in the Senate. They believe that for some reason, they think that Raphael Warnock will go down to Herschel Walker in Georgia and that Dr. Oz will end up winning in Pennsylvania, but that Catherine Cortez Masto will pull out a close race in Nevada. I think that is very unlikely to happen. I think that Republicans will end up with at least 52. I think 53 or 54. Obviously, that means Blake Masters and Don Baldock in New Hampshire. I'm going to go optimistic. I'm going to say that Republicans win 53 to 54 seats here. I'm a little more dicey on Baldock just because the polling there, so it closed so suddenly and so fast that it's sort of hard to see what's going on in New Hampshire. Arizona, I could see Kerry Lake dragging Blake Masters over the finish line in Arizona. Bottom line here is that, again, it seems betting markets are now suggesting at a 70% clip that Republicans are going to take the Senate. And if you look at the Real Clear Politics poll averages, you can see why. Right now in Pennsylvania, Dr. Oz is up 0.4. Virtually all of the latest polls have Dr. Oz up in Pennsylvania. The question is going to be how much the early voting hurt in Pennsylvania. We'll get to the voting tabulation procedures and what we can expect on actual election night in just a moment. In New Hampshire, Maggie Hassan is up just 1.4 points, according to the Real Clear Politics polling average. Now, she is up in 4 of the last 5 polls, but virtually all of them are within the margin of error. This is why, again, I'm not sanguine about taking New Hampshire for the Republicans, why I say 53 as opposed to 54. In Arizona, Blake Masters is actually now up in the Real Clear Politics polling average, which is a shocker. The last 3 polls have Masters either tied or up 1. Now, again, that does not make a huge difference. Essentially, when you're within margin of error, it's a toss-up. But you can see that, for example, Larry Sabato has Nevada going Democrat. I don't see that at all. The last 4 polls in Nevada are Laxalt +5, Laxalt +2, Laxalt +6, Laxalt +5. I think Laxalt takes the Nevada Senate seat. And then you see a bunch of seats that were supposed to be vulnerable for Republicans, and they are turning out not to be particularly vulnerable. Ron Johnson in Wisconsin would be one of those seats. Bud in North Carolina was supposed to be one of those seats. Vance in Ohio was supposed to be one of those seats. And those races have really, really opened up. We'll get to more on this in just one second. First, with everything going on in the world right now, like election day, you could really use a good night's sleep. That's why you need to check out Helix Mattress. So you can go to sleep tonight and then find out who actually won in the morning. I've had my Helix mattress for years at this point. It is wonderful because it is what allows me to have the rest that I so crave. Helix has several different mattress models to choose from, soft, medium, and firm mattresses. Mattresses great for cooling you down. Mattresses for spinal alignment, prevent morning aches and pains. Even a Helix Plus mattress for plus-size sleepers. If you're nervous about buying a mattress online, you don't have to be. Helix has a sleep quiz that matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. Because why would you buy a mattress made for somebody else? I took the Helix quiz. I was matched with a firm yet breathable model because if it's not firm, then I get back pain. If it's not breathable, then I heat up too much. Go to helixsleep.com/Ben, take their 2-minute sleep quiz, find the perfect mattress for your body and sleep type. Your mattress will come right to your door, shipped for free. Plus, Helix has a 10-year warranty. You get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. They'll even pick it up for you if you don't love it, but you will. Helix has over 12,000 5-star reviews. Their financing options and flexible payment plans make it so a great night's sleep is never far away. For a limited time, Helix is offering up to $350 off all mattress orders plus 2 free pillows for our listeners. It's their best offer yet. It's not going to last long. Hurry on over to helixsleep.com/Ben. With Helix, better sleep starts now. So right now, if you're a Democrat, you got to be freaking out a little bit. And here's the big stat. Okay, obviously, when it comes to the approval rating for Joe Biden, which is very indicative of how parties do in a midterm, they're not good. It's 42, 43%. But among independents, and remember, independents are the ones who are going to decide this election. It's going to be you. You have to get out to vote. Regardless of your party, you should get out. You should vote today. Whoever you want to see win, make sure that you vote today. These elections are too close. These are hair's breadth, extraordinarily close elections. If you look at that Real Clear Politics polling average, you are seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 races minimum in the Senate that are within margin of error in the polls. So these are really, really tight races. And there are a bunch of House races that are also extremely close. There are an extraordinary number of gubernatorial races that are really, really close. Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan is up in the Real Clear Politics polling average by 1 point. 1. Very close race in Arizona, where Kari Lake is up in the Real Clear Politics polling average by 3.5. Over in Wisconsin, it's a margin of error race for the Wisconsin governorship. So, again, get out and vote. But one of the things that's important to mention here is that independents are going to be the deciders in a lot of these elections. This is what happened in both 2016 and 2020 in the presidential. In 2016, late deciding voters broke 2-1 for Trump. In 2020, late deciding voters broke 2-1 for Joe Biden. This time around, independents, who presumably would be the late deciding voters, they really don't like Joe Biden at all. Chuck Todd over at NBC had to wipe away the tears as he announced this fact.
Biden's job approval rating sits at 44% in this final NBC News poll. By the way, all-time low with independents. His approval rating is just 28%. And let me put this in context for you. What does a job rating mean? Some people believe it's the single most important indicator to understand where a midterm election is going. Bill Clinton's 44% job approval rating translated into a 54-seat loss for his party. A 45% job approval rating for President Obama in 2010 translated to 63 lost House seats. 46% for President Trump, 40 House seat loss for his party. So what will 44% give us?
Okay, so one of the big problems for Republicans in terms of defining a wave is the fact that Republicans are actually in very strong position in the House going into the election. By the way, one way that you can tell that Republicans are about to do very well in a lot of these states is what Donald Trump has been doing at his rallies. So remember, Donald Trump tried to run David Perdue against Brian Kemp in the primaries for governor of Georgia, and David Perdue just got walloped. And then Donald Trump yelled at Brian Kemp for like several months there about how terrible Brian Kemp was because Donald Trump didn't win Georgia. Last night, Donald Trump came out and endorsed Brian Kemp for re-election in Georgia. Of course he's going to, because Brian Kemp is going to win by 1,000 points over Stacey Abrams. Okay, so the question becomes, what does a red wave look like? So there are a few things that are worth noting about the red wave. We'll get into the sort of red mirage of all of this and how voting procedures work in just a second, because there are a lot of people on the right who are very much afraid that they're going to go to bed tonight and it's going to look like a red wave, and then tomorrow it's going to look like a red ripple or something because of voting procedures. So we'll talk about realistically what voting tabulation looks like in places like Pennsylvania. It is pathetic that many states do not count like Florida. Florida is going to close, and within an hour, you're going to have solid results in Florida because, again, all the absentee ballots as they come in are being tabulated. Everything is tabulated electronically. That means that you get results incredibly fast. There's no reason in a civilized country you cannot have results same night. But there are procedures in place in these places, and a lot of these procedures suck. So that happens to be real. However, one thing that you can watch from the media is that if Republicans come in anywhere below, say, 40 seats, if they come below 30 seats, then Democrats are going to suggest that it was not a good night for Republicans. This is a lie. Remember, when it comes to the House, Republicans currently hold 212 seats. 212 seats out of 435. What this means is that if you look historically at the size of House majorities for Republicans, there have been only 4 times since World War II, and 3 since 2010, but 4 times since World War II, that Republicans have had over 240 seats in the House. They would only have to win about 28 seats to get over 240 seats in the House. So you could see Democrats easily saying, well, you only won 28 seats. Is that really a wave? Normally, look at those stats. Normally, when the president's approval rating is at 44%, you're losing 50 seats or 60 seats. The answer is Republicans outperformed the president on the ballot in 2020, which means that Republicans have a very narrow minority in the House right now. Republicans are not down by 40 seats. Republicans are not down by 30 seats. Republicans are down by 10 seats. And that means the possibility of them picking up a lot of seats is a lot lower. And that means also that it wouldn't take a whole hell of a lot for Republicans to have a historically large majority. If the GOP adds 36 seats, which is less than all of those other quote-unquote wave elections. Remember, in 2010, Republicans picked up like 60 seats, but that's because they went into that election in a horrible position in the House. If you look historically at the House divisions, and you look at 2010, going into the 2010 election, Democrats had 257 seats in the House. So when Republicans picked up 60 seats, they ended up at 242. In order for Republicans to end up at 242 tonight, all they have to do is pick up 30 seats. So the question is not really how many seats you pick up. The question is how many seats you end up with. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be getting into Hunter Biden's laptop, what Republicans are going to investigate if they win with Megyn Kelly, plus Sean Trendy of Real Clear Politics stops by. We go through every single major Senate election. If you're not a member, click the link in the description and join us.